Welcome to Withdrawal Consent. I'm Victor. This is Jack. Victor, what do you have for us?
Today, I want to talk about corruption. I want to talk about just different ways that the government can enrich themselves through like taxpayer money and that type of thing. Uh, Years ago, before I was really questioning things, I really believed the government was working in good faith. Like it was just different ideologies, but ultimately they were trying to do good things. And so I never really honestly entertained corruption and thought about it and all that. So I just wanted to go over some of the different ways that corruption is seemingly being performed so you can see the pattern, our audience can see the pattern as well.
I want to agree with you about what you
Okay.
said, but when I did see corruption previously, I just thought, oh, this is isolated corruption. This is
Okay.
just Bernie made up or something like that, you know?
Okay. Gotcha.
So I excused it as not being interconnected with other things.
Okay. And this list is not exhaustive or anything. This is just examples of how it can happen this way or, other ways. But you could probably spend your whole life researching this for all the different people in government. And yeah, it's insane. So, my first example has to do with President Barack Obama. When he was during his term, he made a deal with a company to publish a new way of um, teaching kids at school. It's called Common Core. It was a complete disaster. States refused to use it, and because it was just terrible learning tools. But the company that got that contract to print all the books, the contract was for over $350 million. So when President Obama left office, he got a book deal from Penguin, who was a subsidiary of the company who did the main publishing. And so his two books, one for him, one for Michelle Obama, for $65 million for two books.
Sounds fair.
And you think, oh, well, he's the president. He has got so much to say. The previous president, George W. Bush, who was in term for the exact same amount of time, his book deal was $10 million. So they got two books, one for the first lady, and just an insane amount of money. And so now there isn't an exact like quid quo pro here, but it makes you wonder. And a lot of this stuff is like that things line up and it makes you question things.
Right. It doesn't make me wonder. I'm pretty clear that he was putting the best interest of the American people first in this deal.
Okay,
I'm pretty
good.
sure.
Yeah, yeah, good dude. So then another example is how America sends foreign aid to people, and the money then gets siphoned back to either the people who are in government or their family members. So there was documents came out of Ukraine that there was a slush fund that John Kerry and Hunter Biden had that Burisma put just about $20 million into, and they also gave Hunter Biden a $83,000 a month seat on a board. He has no, he's not part of like that industry. He brings no knowledge or anything. He's just the son of the vice president at the time. He held that position until 2 months after Joe Biden left office in 2016 or beginning of 2017. And again, it's one of those things. How is that not a coincidence? So they just made, a ton of money came in. And there's a video clip you can see of Joe Biden saying that, bragging that he got this investigator fired, or else he was going to withhold $1 billion of financial aid.
Sounds quid pro quo.
It does sound like it. The investigator was someone who was investigating the company for corruption. So fire this guy, we'll give you the $1 billion, and then give my son a job, and then the money comes back to the family. A small portion of it, but it's still enriching yourself off of taxpayer money.
So it seems like they're having a condition of the foreign aid being sent to them
Right.
is that they get kicked back
Right.
for personal corruption.
Yeah, just take a small 0.5% of what we send you, and you're going to give it back to me or
Okay.
my family members or the people who help make this happen. Another local example of like how it can happen just within the country is like advanced stock tips. Like there's one recently in the last couple of years where there was going to be an antitrust lawsuit brought against Google, their parent company Alphabet, and Nancy Pelosi's husband did a deal a couple days before the antitrust bill was announced, where they made $5 million because of how the stocks changed after the antitrust suit was announced. And that's, I mean, there was an act in 2012, I believe, that was created that they aren't allowed to do this, but somehow it keeps happening, and they keep making money off of knowing things that a normal person doesn't and using that to get rich.
I saw recently somebody put forward that they redo another act to stop them from doing this,
Okay.
to trading stocks. But then I seen an interesting comment to that, and it was, well, what about options? You know, so you're going to say that they can't do stocks, but you know, the Pelosi's are big on options.
This one was a Pelosi one.
Okay. But was it options or stocks is what I'm saying.
But
So they could make a law that says you go to jail forever if you do stocks, and they could still make tons of money from options because they stop themselves from insider trading, you know? And I mean, speaking of corruption, this just reminds me of the whole thing where people incestuously float between different related agencies, you know?
okay.
So like where you have the people from the FDA will then go to work on the big pharma boards.
Oh, so not within agencies, in government, and then they go to the people they were regulating.
Right.
Okay.
Or the other way. They're big pharma, you know what I'm saying? And they're working
Okay.
together, and then they swap. And the same thing's done in the defense industry. You know, they do it between DOD and defense industry. It's insane that we have this concept called conflict of interest in this country, and then nobody applies it to the main things that matter. You know, I could really care less if you're defending someone and you know their cousin, but nope, that's not allowed in court. You know, but then get to, you know, it's terrible.
Right. So it's, I mean, to explain that further, it's you make good regulations for this company with the wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You're going to give me a good seat on your board or whatever when I'm out of office.
Right.
And pay me for.
Which means there's no effective regulation going on.
Right.
So I the other day I seen this. Somebody, who was it? Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Oh, okay.
He's very smart. He made the argument. He's like, somebody had said, well, you know, like, I'm not going to force you to get an abortion. Don't force me to get a vaccine, he had said. And the other guy said, but the vaccines are safe and effective. You know, like they have whole regulatory agencies for this, you know, that, okay, this is a fun fact. 1/3 of all drugs that the FDA has ever been approved, has ever approved, have been recalled.
Wow.
1/3. Imagine. So you figure if you buy 3 drugs at the store, there's one of them's going to be bad for you. And do you know what I'm saying? Because it's the people who formerly at Big Pharma who are telling you whether or not the drugs are good for the people who are formerly at the FDA who are now in Big Pharma.
Gotcha.
You know?
Yeah, I saw a stat that's one of the big companies got a fine for $2.2 billion with a B. Mm-hmm. And they were fine paying it because if you look at the overall stat, they ignored the FDA for like 9 years and they made $24 billion off of it. So they gave like 10% back, came out $22 billion ahead. And yeah, it's just amazing how much they make.
Right. Okay. And I just want to add here, it's almost unrelated, but I just want to add it every video that we want everything to be oriented to the best interest of the American people. The FDA is not oriented to the best interest of the people.
Right.
The weapons contractors are not. The people, the DOD are not. The people in Big Pharma are not. The people in the corporate media, who is the propaganda arm for the system, they are promoting all these things. They are not.
Correct.
And so just in everything, we're looking for, you know, like if you were to look at us and say, well, what about you guys? Are you in the interest of the American people? Well, okay, what's the scam we're running then?
Yeah.
We're just promoting things that are in the interest of the American people and calling out people who were against it. That's it. You know?
Yeah. And like you were saying, the war profiteering is another. I mean, when was the last time we didn't have a war? It's been decades. I mean, we lasted, 9 months between Afghanistan and Ukraine, and we're just constantly funneling money out to these people, like you're saying, the military contractors.
But even if you say 9 months, we still had Yemen in the middle where we could, you know, so we didn't really go without.
Yeah. So take, for instance, Afghanistan. There was a company that was got a contract to build 100,000 houses in either Iraq or Afghanistan. And it was given to a company called Hillstone International. They had just recently added to their board James Biden, the brother of Joe Biden. And on their page where they're listing all of what these different people bring to the table to help this company, his main strength was that he was the brother of the vice president. And so this was $1.5 billion went to this company to build these houses, and over $700 million of it was profit. And all because...
How do you even make a profit in that business, though?
because you took in $1.5 billion to use seven. Let's say
You-
they spent half of it to actually build the houses. The rest of it's all profit.
That's not how that should work at all.
It should not work.
You quote me, you could do it in 800 million. I give you 800 million and you do it.
Yeah.
And everybody gets paid, including the board, for the 800 million.
Right, but if your quote is excessive, and it really should have been a $400 million quote, because your brother's you give it to them because you know all that money's coming back into the family, or some of it.
Nice.
So that's
Sweet deal.
Yeah.
So we're gonna start building houses.
It sounds
I'm
like
just kidding. Just kidding.
So that's some ways that you can try to spot things that look like corruption and just see the patterns.
Okay, thank you for joining us at Withdraw Consent. If you learned anything new about corruption in the government or it caused you to question something, just look into it deeper and just look into all these things. And we appreciate it if you share this video if you think somebody else would be interested in seeing what's really going on in the system. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.